All right, today we're going to dive into a topic that is just incredibly fascinating. It's called ethnobotany. And really, it's where this ancient wisdom about the natural world crashes right into modern science. We're going to explore this really deep, almost sacred connection that we humans have with plants, a bond that honestly might just hold some of the biggest keys to our future.
So let's just start with this one big question to frame our whole conversation. What can a single plant, just one, really teach us about an entire culture? I mean, can it tell us about their history, their science, their beliefs, their spirituality, their very survival? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is, yeah, it can teach us pretty much everything.
So our journey is going to begin right here by trying to understand ethnobotany not just as another scientific discipline, but really as a crucial bridge, a bridge that connects totally different ways of knowing and understanding the world around us. Okay, so what is it officially? Well, at its absolute core, ethnobotany is the study of the relationship between people and plants. Simple enough, right? But what I really love about thinking of it this way is that it's not just biology, collecting and classifying plants, and it's not just anthropology, studying human societies. It's that vibrant, dynamic space right in the middle, the intersection where nature and culture are completely woven together.
This relationship isn't some new age idea. It is absolutely fundamental to our existence as a species. For thousands upon thousands of years, the survival of our ancestors depended completely on their intricate knowledge of the plant world. Think about it. They had to know what to eat and what was poisonous. They had to know what wood was strong enough to build a shelter. And maybe most importantly, what leaves or roots could heal a wound or cure a sickness. This isn't just history, folks. This is the oldest science there is.
So if this knowledge is so incredibly old, who takes care of it today? Who are the protectors? Well, let's talk about the guardians of what I like to call these living libraries. The overwhelming majority of this detailed, complex, and nuanced botanical knowledge, it's held by indigenous and local communities all around the globe. And they're not just passive users of these plants. No. They are the active stewards, the protectors of both the plants themselves and the incredible wisdom that they represent. And this right here, this quote really drives home the absolute urgency of the situation. This knowledge isn't written down in textbooks or stored on a server somewhere. It's a living tradition. It's passed down orally from one generation to the next through stories, songs, and ceremonies. So as this quote points out, when an elder passes away, it's not just the loss of a person. It's as if an entire library has just burned to the ground. This makes the work of listening, learning, and preserving this knowledge incredibly time-sensitive. But this brings us to a really deep and serious ethical conflict that sits right at the heart of this field. When this traditional knowledge makes its way into the global marketplace, is it a celebrated discovery for all of humanity, or is it just plain theft? So this slide really lays out the two very different paths you can take. On the one hand, you have what's called bioprospecting. This is the ethical way, right? It's collaborative exploration of biodiversity, where the communities who hold the knowledge are treated as equal partners and any benefits, financial or otherwise, are shared fairly. But then you have the dark side, biopiracy. And that's just taking that knowledge, taking those resources without any permission, without any conversation, and certainly without any compensation. The line between these two isn't blurry, it's a chasm, and what defines it is one simple but powerful word: consent. Let's look at a real-world case study that makes this conflict crystal clear. We're talking about the Hoodia plant. Now, for generations, the San people of southern Africa have used this little succulent plant. They'd chew on it to stave off hunger and thirst during long hunting trips in the desert. It was a part of their traditional knowledge, a key to their survival. So, here's the story of what happened. Back in 1995, a South African research council figured out what made Hoodia work, and they patented its active compounds, hoping to create a blockbuster weight loss drug. The problem? They never consulted the San people. They never asked. So it took years of struggle, but in 2001, the San challenged this patent, and it was a huge deal. They argued, rightfully, that this was their knowledge. This led to a landmark benefit-sharing agreement in 2003, which was a major victory. It was a long, hard-fought battle for recognition, and even though the whole project was later dropped for other reasons, it set an incredibly important precedent.
So what was the crucial point here? The Hoodia case was a clear-cut, textbook violation of the right to free, prior, and informed consent. And this isn't some new idea, okay?
This principle was established as the absolute bedrock of ethical ethnobotany way back in 1988 in something called the Declaration of Belém. Let's break that down. Free means no coercion. Prior means before any research begins. And informed means the community has to have all the information about what you plan to do. Anything less is just not ethical. Now, let's switch gears a bit, because when this work is done ethically, when it's done with respect and collaboration, the potential of this field is absolutely staggering. So let's take a look at the journey from the forest to the pharmacy and even beyond. The applications are just incredibly diverse. First, the obvious one, medicine. We're talking about discovering leads for brand new drugs that could fight everything from cancer to antibiotic-resistant bacteria. But it's so much more. We're also talking about improving food security, finding resilient crops that can grow in a world with a changing climate. It also helps inform the creation of sustainable products, from natural cosmetics to biodegradable materials. And get this, it even helps us understand our own past by using plant data to trace the migration patterns of ancient peoples across continents. It's amazing. And we have to be really careful not to dismiss this knowledge as simple folklore or happy accidents. It's not. Take ayahuasca, the famous Amazonian ceremonial brew. To make it, you have to combine two very specific plants. One of them contains the powerful psychoactive compound DMT. But here's the catch. Our bodies have an enzyme that breaks it down immediately, so it has no effect if you just eat that plant. But the second plant in the recipe contains a compound that inhibits that exact enzyme, allowing the DMT to become active. Now, how in the world did they figure that out among the hundreds of thousands of plants in the Amazon? That is not luck. That is sophisticated, empirical science developed over generations.
Okay, so this brings us to our final and maybe the most critical point of our entire discussion: the deep, unbreakable connection between this ancient knowledge and the modern challenge of conservation. Because at the end of the day, it's really about saving plants to save ourselves.
So think about this. How do we know if a plant species is endangered? Well, scientists in a lab can look at satellite maps and make educated guesses. But it's the local people, the ones who live on that land, who have generations of on-the-ground observation. They're the ones who know which plants are becoming harder and harder to find. They know the specific places they grow, and they often know why they're disappearing. Their knowledge is not just helpful, it is absolutely vital for making accurate conservation assessments. Now, I know this slide might look a little technical, but the core idea here is really simple. To figure out if a species is in trouble, scientists need to answer a few basic questions. First, how many of them are there? That's population size. Second, are their numbers shrinking over time? That's a continuing decline. And third, how quickly do they reproduce? That's generation length. And who has this information, often better than anyone? The people who live with these plants every single day. Their knowledge provides the real-world data that gives meaning to all these scientific concepts.
Okay, so the next step is basically mapping. Scientists need to figure out the plant's total potential range, which they call its extent of occurrence. Then they have to compare that to where it actually lives right now, its area of occupancy. Often that area is shrinking. And again, who knows this better than anyone? Who knows those hidden valleys or specific mountainsides where a rare plant still grows? It's the local people. Their knowledge is the absolute key to creating accurate maps, which in turn leads to effective conservation strategies.
And here's where it all comes together. All of this essential, on-the-ground information feeds directly into the globally recognized IUCN Red List. This is the gold standard for classifying whether a species is vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered. Every single one of these criteria you see here, a declining population, a shrinking range, a small population size, they all rely on the kind of detailed, long-term observation that Indigenous knowledge provides. It's not just a nice story, it's the missing piece of the scientific puzzle.
So we end right where we began. Ethnobotany shows us, without a doubt, that this ancient wisdom holds powerful, practical solutions for our most pressing modern problems. Everything from medicine to climate change to conservation. The only question that's left, really, is a question for all of us. Are we finally ready to listen to the planet's oldest voices?